have 45 minutes to cover a subject which I could probably pontificate over for 3 hours. And I'm the only thing between us and these chairs. So I'm going to ask a little favor, and that is to please hold questions to the end. If we run out of time, I'll stay a bit afterwards, after class, and you'll be able to ask me questions then. Let's put it that way, fair enough? Okay, introducing myself, I think many of you know who I am. I'm a principal scientist at Adobe Systems. I've been there 28 long and happy years, going back to the days of PostScript Level 2 when it was first being defined. And as of this June, I will have been in the software engineering industry for 50 years. So I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of successes. I've seen a lot of failures. Outside of Adobe, I tend to be known as someone who's controversial. Inside of Adobe, I'm known to be as someone who's fairly controversial. Various groups within Adobe see me coming and they run, mainly because they're afraid I'm going to be too customer friendly and ask them to fix bugs to make the product more usable, etc. So I'm mutually disliked by many people, and we'll try to leverage that this afternoon. Fair enough? Okay, let's continue on. We're going to talk about PDF and open data. Basically, PDF beyond just the final form visual content that we all know and love in some way or another. The challenge is combating ignorance and misconceptions. I really hate it when I see this stupid thing repeated over and over the web. You can use Google to find PDFs are where data goes to die. And I even found somebody use Photoshop to do a cute little photo. Isn't that nice, okay? Well, the trouble is we have a challenge of combating ignorance and misconceptions. This mantra is mindlessly echoed around the internet, but it's great clickbait. You know, you see that, oh my, what is he going to say? Click on it, and you know, you're in a website that's selling you all sorts of stuff, whatever. It's typically parroted by people with various types of issues. Some of them are real, some of them imagined. The truth is someplace in the middle. People who've experienced difficulty in getting data requested, both in terms of availability and method of delivery. You know, there's a difference between that. Undue attention to Tim Berners-Lee's 5-star ranking system, and we'll mention what that sort of is. 1 stars to 5 stars, he considers PDF only 1 star at best. User confusion and people who are know-it-alls who really don't. And the PDF versus web formats boogeyman, which is a subject we will bring up, of course. And mistaken beliefs that PDF is a proprietary file format and some sort of irrational hatred of PDF and Adobe or Adobe and PDF or authority in general, okay? Well, what is this Tim Berners-Lee 5-star ranking system for open data? He published this in 2010. It's been published over and over again around the web. Basically, 1 star is a file that somehow it makes stuff available, and he uses the word stuff, available on the web, whatever format, under an open license. And he considers that's the best PDF can be. 2, makes it available as structured data, and he specifically says Excel, instead of an image scan of a table, I think that's obvious, but then it gets better if you have it as a non-proprietary open format, CSV instead of Excel, although as far as I'm concerned, CSV sort of came from Microsoft and Excel, but don't tell him that. Then 4 stars make URIs to denote things such that people can point to your stuff. And then what he considers 5, link your data to other data to provide context. And there are pretty diagrams on the web that show this stuff. But it ignores the reality that PDF may contain data files. It's not just for scraping, okay? And we'll talk about what scraping is. You know, it's very literal. You're scraping data. And there are questionable value judgments. In fact, an XLS file from Microsoft, or an XLSX file, which actually is a zip file with content in it that's pretty easy to figure out what it is, may be much more appropriate than a CSV file. Okay, if I have data with charts and formulas and whatever, a CSV file might not be the best thing to provide for a particular situation. It may be, it may not be, but that's not a reason for it's 3-star, 4-star, whatever, 2-star, 3-star, what have you, okay? And in some cases, some of this judgment might be that somebody just doesn't like Microsoft, okay? You get into irrational things. Our challenge is basically to tease apart these issues and provide data access solutions appropriate to one's needs. That's what we're trying to do, not meet a theoretical model that somebody has in their mind from so many years ago. Okay, well, what's open data? It's a concept that some data, some is, subjective, of course, should be freely available to everyone to use and republish as they wish without restrictions, copyright, patents, other mechanisms of control. Context of this, functioning of governance in a free society. Okay, in the United States, we have something called the Freedom of Information Act, where basically, unless something is classified by the government as secret, you can basically make a request to the government and they have to provide that to you, okay? STEM research is another example. STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, where you're publishing papers and you're trying to be, and people want to be able to access what's the data underneath this, okay? You write a paper about the effects of a certain medicine on talking chickens that play oboe, and someone wants to do peer review. And you want that underlying data. The paper's very nice, but I want to check whether this guy's data really matches conclusions. Example, finance, certain financial data, public companies fits under the category of open data. Let's say an annual report. It might be nice to get some of the financials in a form other than just some sort of printed table type of thing. What are the issues? Certainly, which data qualifies for open data? Okay, this isn't a technical issue. This is a political issue. This is something that could be debated. We're not going to solve it here, and I'm not going to even attempt to go beyond that. Intentional delays in releasing data. If you have a responsibility as a government agency and there's stuff that you're hiding that's dirty laundry, you might not want to release it. So you make excuses or you put it out in forms that make it very difficult or hide what's really going on. That's not a technical issue. Okay? Release of data in inappropriate formats, requiring onerous and error-prone types of things or scraping processes to get it. And this is where some of this PDF is where data goes to die thing comes from. Perhaps this data is released as a database or spreadsheet data output to a PDF file. Well, that's nice to look at visually, but if you want to do something with that data, it might be difficult. And in some cases, what happens is that organizations will print out something, photocopy it, scan that back in and make a PDF file, which is really difficult to deal with, okay? Because you then have to OCR, then you have to try to say export it to something else, and you lose all context and all reliability in that. In many cases, the recipient really needs the source document, not a final form file format for republishing the document. For example, if I want to republish, a War and Peace, okay, I don't want a PDF file of the thing. I probably want the source file. Well, it wasn't a Word document back there, but whatever it was in, so I could reformat it appropriately. A PDF file is not going to do that. Exporting from PDF might get me halfway there, and then I have to fool around with the thing. Okay, in some cases, the recipient doesn't know how to use the data provided. Again, that's not a technical issue. But if they could blame it on it, it's a PDF file, so therefore I can't do anything with it. The recipient wants or needs more than they're entitled to, okay? And in which case, if they're getting the content in a PDF file, well, the PDF file is at fault. No, it isn't. Your expectations are wrong, or you don't have the proper agreement with whoever's giving you this data. And then there's issues of dynamic access versus static access, and the issues of blind exchange archival process, okay? And we'll talk about that also. Well, let's bring up the boogeyman, okay? PDF versus web formats. Actually, the term boogeyman was often used by John Warnock to describe issues that we didn't want to talk about or a problem that we had to solve. But this is one of the things behind it. There are web formats and there's PDF. So let's just discuss this straight off. When you talk about web formats, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the bastard third cousins associated with this whole process, they provide great potential for dynamic access, a dashboard type of thing. Right now, show me this data or even let me manipulate this in real time. But the problem is that it requires online access and availability of all assets, and the results, of course, may vary by browser. HTML and its cousins are not ISO standards. They are recommendations, and we all know the problems of what you do, what comes out in Internet Explorer and Safari and Chrome and Firefox differs like crazy versus Edge. Let's forget about that for the time being. That's not leading edge. Okay, and it certainly may change beneath you. What you look at right now, 5 minutes from now, might give you the website isn't up or the data may change, etc. So it's not something that's archival. It's not something that you can count on. Examples, I have HTML-based email of receipts for things, and I try looking a week later to reorder the thing, and it's all gone. Other than a few words to unsubscribe, click here. But the dynamic access is one thing. It's great if you want to use it for something right now, especially dashboard applications. PDF. It's basically a container file format primarily used over time as its final form file format supporting, but it also supports compressed file attachments and metadata. And this is something that becomes rather important to us for what we're talking about this afternoon. It may be fully self-contained, something that has been called, maybe correctly or incorrectly, blind exchange. If you look at the PDFX file format subset of PDF, that X is from the X in exchange for blind exchange. Printers felt comfortable they were getting all the assets that were required to print the damn thing. Okay, it has potential for great static access to data. Okay, you can have it offline and it doesn't change on you. If it changes on you, there's something else that's wrong. It's not truly a self-contained PDF file. And it is international standards. It's not an Adobe format. It's been 10 years since it's been an Adobe format, and even then it was publicized and we never had required anybody to license anything from us. Okay, ISO 32000, it should be -2 on the second one, PDF-A, etc. Okay, we're not going to go into that because you've heard enough about that over the last day and a half. Okay, what about hybrid solutions? Some of these might work quite nicely. You want to access that PDF file that somehow has data in it? Yeah, it makes sense to be able to grab that initially off the web and then work on it on your own system as you see fit, and it's at that point immutable. You can count on it not changing beneath you. Working the other way around, having a PDF file that accesses data via links becomes more problematic because that is effectively a dynamic access type of thing where you're depending upon the things you're accessing staying the same and being available at all times. It sort of defeats the purpose of using PDF. Okay, well, what are the available techniques that we have? Okay, number one is embedded files. PDF has the capability of letting you embed a file into the PDF file, any format you really want. There's some that don't make very much sense. Don't put an executable file or a DOS batch file, something stupid like that, into a PDF file. Okay, it's very easy to implement. It's independent of a PDF viewer. There are no context issues involved here. In other words, it's up to what type of file it is as to what is done, but the PDF viewer typically lets the operating system of the environment call on the proper serving program for that particular file format. On the other side, you have metadata and tagging, which also provides a means of embedding data of subtype, but it has a major problem in terms of complexity. It requires programming and a viewer that understands what that metadata is, or a plug-in to the viewer or whatever, to be able to say, yes, I know what this is, I know what to do with it. So it's a less generalized type of thing. Okay, it's certainly valid, but it's more problematic to get everyone to agree to be able to serve that. More viewers understand attachments, embedded files, than understand interesting metadata that might be within a PDF file. The best example of embedded data in a PDF file as private data is the Adobe Illustrator file format. Okay, when you save a .ai file, yes, it looks like a PDF file, but it has private data in there. Acrobat doesn't know how to process it. The only thing that really knows how to process it is Adobe Illustrator. Example of that, and probably not what we would do again. Okay, well, I'm trying to be honest, How could we use PDF for open data? This is my concept of what the best practices are. Your mileage may vary, you may think otherwise. I think PDF A3 is an excellent approach right now. It specifically provides a reliable PDF file in terms of blind exchange, supports file attachments, and using a capability that came into PDF 2.0 is called associated files. Okay, and excuse me, if you use attachment annotations, you can actually have an association between a particular place in that PDF file and that attachment. We'll give you an example of that. It uses standard formats. I would then say use standard formats for embedded data files. Things that people are likely to be able to open and use, as opposed to something that's oddball, proprietary, whatever. Obviously, don't embed executable files unless you want to lose all your friends. Check files for viruses and exploits prior to embedding. And really, don't use hyperlinks to reference data external to the PDF file. That sort of defeats the purpose, as we said. And I'm not going to get into methods of doing this, but digital signatures actually can give some confidence that the file has not been modified, especially in financial situations. Okay, let's give a simple example. We're in Germany. Let's give a German example. I don't know how to pronounce it. Zugford? Yes. Close enough? Okay. It is a specification. I even have an English language version you could download. Okay, so I was able to actually understand it a little bit. It contains a visual representation of a invoice, PDF A3, it's specific in the specification, with an XML-based structured representation of the actual invoice data so that this can be machine processed. Okay, and it also, because it is A3, it meets all those particular positive attributes. It also allows you to put in other attachments. For example, receipts, a laundry list, whatever you want. I'm not going to get into what other things could be in there. In this particular case, one PDF A3 file equals one invoice. Is this good for big business-to-business transactions? Probably not. But for smaller businesses, this makes some sense. You can have a simple program that strips off the invoice, calls you name your favorite viewer to display the thing, and everyone's happy, okay? And you can probably hook it into other software that actually pays the bill if you have money as a small business. Okay, let's go to a sample one of these files. I just happen to have one. I was surprised, very few presentations in this place over the last 2 days had actual examples. Anyway, this is the visual version of this. I don't understand what it says, but it looks like an invoice. And underneath there is an XML file, Zugford-invoice.xml. I open it up, and Windows by default throws it into a viewer, and there's beautiful XML that if you have something that understands that and can process it, voila, as they say in West Germany, it's there for you, okay? Simple questions? Nah. This is a simple example of how to do this, okay? It started off simple. It didn't try to solve world peace and hunger and everything else. Fine, let's move on. Okay, let's take another example. California has a utility company, much beloved, called Pacific Gas and Electric Company, PG&E. You may hear it referred to as pigs, goats, and elephants, but I didn't say that. Customers receive a monthly printed statement. The envelope includes advertisements and regulatory information, and that regulatory information is usually notices of rate increases coming up on separate sheets of paper, plus a return envelope to send your check in. A customer may also opt to say, I don't want no stinking paper, and be able to go to the website, you have to do it yourself, and download a PDF copy of that same monthly statement. And it's available only for a limited period of time. I think no more than 2-3 years at most. And that's true of most US companies at least. If you opt for some sort of electronic delivery, you have to go get it. Normally they don't tell you it's ready, and you have to download it and decide where you're going to keep it. That's a separate discussion, a separate presentation. Okay. The statement includes some current billing information plus some limited historical information in graphical form. It's also true that if you know where to look, you can also download other information from that website associated with your account, okay? But you have to know where to look. Okay, let's take a look at what this wonderful invoice looks like. Here it is. Okay, this is exactly what Gustav Hunkeldinkle here got. It gives a little bit of billing history, not particularly useful. Can you process this or do anything with it? Hell no. There's all sorts of miscellaneous charges here. They tell me about my electric delivery charges and a little bit of history here, but again, very difficult to even read on paper. Generation charges, gas charges, natural gas charges. Again, a little bit of history here, not very much to do anything with. And then important messages, okay? And that's it. Okay, well, what can we do with that? As you'll recall, and this is what you just saw, if you recall, you were able to download other stuff. So I decided to download the other stuff and see what I could do in terms of making something that would really be good, okay? I downloaded all these goodies from their website. I attached these files to the base PDF file by itself. No, not very useful. Just attaching them, I'd have to know how to get at them and what was associated with what part of the bill. So what I did was I embedded the downloaded files via attachment annotations. Acrobat has an ability to say, at this point, with this file, put this in a PDF file and just show me a little something to indicate, and if I click on it, I'll be able to get at it. Okay, and then I said, okay, using pre-flight in Acrobat, let's make this a PDF A3B file. Yeah, A3B, yeah. And it worked, okay? And just to show you what that looks like, of course, here's what I got. Isn't this nice? I have paper clips here, but I don't know what this stuff is about, right? Not very useful. I can put it, and it'll tell me a file name, and those files are actually, we'll find them. They're here. Okay, but how do I, it doesn't really help me all that much. Yes, I now have data in here. Useful, not as useful as it could be. So let's see what else we can do. Stage 2 fix-ups. Add explanatory text to indicate what these paper clips are about. Save the file after validating it still conforms to PDF A3B. Digitally sign and lock the file. Why? Because if I want, well, I had a bad experience once, so I did some work with a nonprofit, and some administrative assistant got the file as the invoice from MasterCard or Visa as a PDF file and went in and edited it, and she did her own little business on the side. So I like something that gives me a little more confidence that this thing hasn't been mucked with, okay? And then, again, validate that this is a PDF A3B file because I happen to be paranoid. Okay, so what does that thing look like? Okay, here we go. It has a digital signature. Let's get the attachments. Actually, doesn't make a difference now. So I added a thing here for my payment history. If I click on that, it tells me what my payment history is. That was something on the PG&E website. Maybe it would have been better if they gave me something that was more like a spreadsheet or something like that, but this is actually relatively easy to be able to export, but nonetheless, I have this data, something that wasn't given to me before. Okay, let's go back here. My monthly electric usage and billing. It wants to know whether I should open this. It's a CSV file. And of course, I have to do a little adjustment here. And what does it show me? My electric bills for every month going back to 2008. Not my bill, but Gustav Hunkeldinkle's bill, going all the way back to 2008 in terms of the kilowatt hours and the cost each of those months. Some months were good, some months were bad. Depends upon the weather in California. Okay, let's close this guy up. I have something similar here for natural gas usage. I won't bother you with that. I also provided an XML format. I included it just to show you that they could provide something similar to Zugford. Okay, what the protocol is here, I haven't had a chance to go look it up. It doesn't matter, but I'm showing it can be done. Okay, here we go farther down. Electric consumption by day and hour. This gets very interesting, especially if you're looking at solar power types of things, and California is really big on that these days. Effective 2020, all new houses in California must provide support, must provide solar power capability. But it shows for every hour since, over the last month, what my usage was in kilowatt hours. Okay? That would be very useful to determine whether, I can get enough power to do the house with solar, or maybe I need a battery bank, etc. Useful things. It costs them nothing to provide this. They're already doing this. Okay, and we get to the very end of this. Okay, I have the same thing for natural gas. I'm not going to open that up. It's the same sort of things in terms of what's my consumption per day, etc. And at the end, I get these beautiful other attachments, which are PDF. Notification of Pacific Gas Electric Company's request to increase rates. Surprise. Okay. But this is something that was relatively easy to do. Okay, and let's go back to the presentation. So what does it show? It could readily be done with current tools and standards. Nothing had to be invented here, okay? You use any one of a number of libraries, and we have vendors here who have these libraries. You saw this morning, you saw a utility program and support from Callis specifically to do this type of thing. Any company can do this. It's something, if you really want to say that we're going to provide an online service, this provides it. And there certainly is data in a PDF file in a useful fashion. Simple example. It's not something that requires 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, a new ISO standard or anything like that. Okay, there's no reason. It's secure, it's lower cost in terms of customer support. And I'll give you another example. Suppose you use something like this for charge card bills. Suppose you go to a department store in United States, Macy's, for example. I don't know if you know what Macy's is. And of course, some people in the household buy all sorts of stuff and then return all sorts of stuff. Do you have the receipt? Of course, conceivably, this could have the receipt attached to the monthly statement. So you print it out or you show it on your cell phone. Here's the freaking receipt, and you can return to your heart's content. Maybe they don't want that. But anyway, it solves a lot of problems. In the future, based on PDF 2.0, with the next generation, about a year and a half at most, we could take one of these files and not only make it PDF A4 for archiving, but also PDF X6. So you can print this for the entire universe and everyone will be happy. Okay. What about STEM documents? Okay, I'm going to give one example here, but this can apply to any number of things. This example basically relates to equations. How am I doing on time? I guess I'm okay for the time being. We're going to make it. It started off as an innocuous email from a friend of mine at RIT in their graphics department from Rochester. He had a friend in the computer science department, and he was doing a research project where he was trying to scrape equations off of existing PDF files, and he was asking me, well, how can I determine the bounding box of these characters, and which which two characters together make an integral sign, and how can you automatically determine this? And I said, you don't really want to do that, do you? You know, an equation could be a combination of text. It could be some vector outline text because they were afraid of the, whether the font was embeddable or not. It could have some raster in it, all sorts of stuff. And I can do similar things, by the way, for chemical formulas and chemical diagrams or whatever. But we looked at equations. Certainly, why would you want this? Well, you might want to grab this difficult equation for republishing someplace else, or for purposes of putting it into a scientific calculator, or perhaps you want to run experiments to prove that this person is either right or wrong or indifferent or whatever. Scraping is difficult, okay? I gave the reasons for that. Maybe it is better to take a certain point in time. I recognize that we have hundreds of years worth of scientific data. We're not going to get Leonardo da Vinci to go back and do his equations with PDF and properly embed these things, okay? But we certainly can say, starting now, we can have mechanisms whereby in your source document, when we create PDF, we do something in terms of including that. And this is one approach that's possible. Two ways of doing it: an attached file. This is what I would recommend, basically because each equation's representation is relatively small and there's potential for a large number of these. Of course, it could be done with metadata. There's tagging in PDF 2.0 that basically says this here is an equation. But it doesn't give any formal thing for what you should do with any metadata associated with that region of the PDF file. Well, there are some challenges, so I'm not giving you a completed solution here today. But for example, how do you represent equations? There's something called MathML, which is another W3C recommendation. And there's several flavors of that, of course, competing. TeX is a batch text formatter which is very popular with the scientific and mathematics community. They have a representation for equations. Word, of course, has multiple solutions, both of which are proprietary. And it's possible that you might want to produce included data that has multiple, the different formats to please everybody. And for MathML, there's a question as well, do you provide the presentation form of it or a contextual version? The difference is presentation is how it looks, context is what does it really mean? I didn't have time to start going into that. I knew I was able to produce presentation, export that, and get that for attachment. And of course, before one would actually be able to canonize a particular way of doing this, you'd have to get some consensus. When you're dealing with academics, that isn't always so easy. Having once been in that, and et cetera, and Matthew and others here who have PhDs can well attest to the problems of academia, okay? So it could be problematic. So I did produce an example, surprise, surprise, using techniques similar to what I did with the PG&E. I took a Microsoft Word document with math type style equations. I created a PDF file via PDF Maker. I also told it to include the source Word file, just for the hell of it. I then basically embedded files representing the multiple formats available for these equations, copied from the math type editor. And in 2 cases, I actually said, oh, they also provide a capability of producing EPS files. I'll show you how bad that can be. And then I created a PDF A3B file, similar to the way I did previously with the attachment annotations, etc. So what do we have here? And of course, I do have a sample for you. Right, equations. Here we go. And let's take example number 1 here. Well, I'm going to open up the attachment so you see where all this stuff is. And what I showed here was the equation in text format, in one flavor of MathML, and a second flavor of MathML. I'm not going to argue which is best, not my department. Okay, what does that equation look like in EPS? Surprise, surprise. Come on, Illustrator, you can do it. Oh gosh. Windows 10 has this problem that basically it doesn't want to believe that you associate a particular file thing with whatever. Okay, it's coming up here. Of course, their EPS doesn't have proper bounding boxes and stuff. Okay, come on, let's make this a little bit bigger. Literally, you get the picture. Okay, some of them aren't too good either. Their EPS generation it would fail the Isaac's test. Let's put it that way. Okay, and we go through here. There's some more complex examples. I don't believe they're going to post these samples with my presentation, but if you send me a request via my email address, isaacs@adobe.com, I'll be glad to send any one of you these files, okay? And you can play with them and tell me what you think of me or the files or the equations, I don't care. Okay. Okay, so summary of what we've discussed. I believe, of course, PDF offers excellent opportunities and features not only to contain, represent, and deliver final form visual content, but also the underlying data in usable formats. Okay, let's forget the academics. Do something that's appropriate for your audience. If your recipients typically have Microsoft Office, it's okay to put a freaking spreadsheet file in there, okay? Some companies actually have things for QuickBooks and other things that you could download so you can bring it into your personal budget planning. But put that stuff, make it available. It doesn't cost anything extra. Maybe it costs literally a penny or less per invoice to do this at the same time you're producing this visually nice thing. The PDF open data solutions are available now. And finally, PDF is absolutely not where the data goes to die. We did it.